Hey, welcome to Appthropology, the podcast where we chat with the people behind awesome mobile apps. We'll look to understand the biggest lessons they've learned while bringing value to people, and we'll dive into interesting stories and insights about how they build and who they build for. So I'm your host, Jim Lorraine, head of growth at AMP.
And I'm Paul, data scientist and co-founder of AMP.
Yep, and today we are joined by Siim Pukk of Fudy. Welcome, Siim.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We're intrigued. We're always happy when we find a food delivery app because it seems like such a crowded space. So you have to be kind of unique to stand out. You have to have some kind of edge. So I'm wondering if you could just give us a quick overview of what is Fudy and how are you guys different and special?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for pronouncing it correctly. I've had different variations of that.
Oh.
But Fudy is a food delivery app, and like you said, there's a highly saturated market. There's competition all over the world. Everyone's doing it. Our aim is to be better at all sides of it for all parts of the marketplace. So we want to give a better experience to the customer with like valuable features, help them save money. But at the same time, we want to help restaurants understand their customers better and new features to them, help couriers make more and all these kinds of things. And we directly target like actual foodies. So actually people that enjoy the food part of the delivery app and want like the highest quality there.
So small goals, right? Small goals, just better to everybody in every way.
But yeah, the details matter a lot. So help better the market by like creating a new innovative features.
Yeah, no, that's good. So you mentioned the foodies, appealing to foodies. So I'm over in the U.S. Paul was born and raised U.S. and now lives in Singapore. So what is like a good snack or comfort food that's common or more unique to Estonia than something we'd find in the U.S.?
That's always a weird question when someone asks that. It's so hard to answer to that because Estonia doesn't have this like unique or authentic history. There's like so many influences. Like we've been invaded by everyone, so our like cuisine really is a mixed match of like different cuisines of countries like Germans, Russians, Spain, Swedes, basically everyone that's close by. But I think the snacks, probably the curd snack in Estonia it's called kohuke, is probably the one that's most referred to by like tourist guides and these people as well. But it's something that you buy from the supermarket. It's not per se like a delivery food app snack. But I think the biggest difference comes from like our holiday dishes. So what we eat during the holidays. Maybe Christmas. I think Christmas there's like 2 or 3 things that are on the table that are probably weird to everyone else.
Yeah.
Let's start from some of it. One is a blood pudding sausage. Have you tried the black pudding in UK?
Yes,
I have,
and I've heard of the blood pudding quite a bit.
Yeah, so it consists of pork, meat and pork blood. But I don't want to go any deeper to that because it's, if you want to keep eating hot dogs, then don't go.
Is there any actual sausage in it? Like, is there any actual meat in it, or is it like just the blood?
I think it's okay. There's some meat, but I still think it's better to left as a mystery.
Yeah, okay.
Let it be.
Yeah, but we eat it with the lingonberry jam, which is also like interesting. Then I think the next thing is it's even weirder. I personally just hate it. It's like a meat jelly, like a wiggly jelly.
Yeah.
But it's made out of there's like meat, usually pork, also like sometimes veggies, and the jelly is made out of meat broth.
So wait, is the jelly that's in a dish that you eat by itself with a spoon, or it's a jelly that you put on top of crackers or bread or something?
The whole
Tell us
thing is
more
jelly.
about.
So it's like jelly, but with meat inside.
Ah, like a chili.
I
Okay,
think
so it's like a chili. So you'll eat it in a bowl.
Yeah, usually. Yeah.
Got
It's
it.
like
I
an
think
upside down cake,
yeah.
but it's salty. I
think
personally don't like it at all.
Yeah, I think you guys are abusing what you call pudding and jelly. You're taking the definitions of pudding and jelly a little bit too far.
Perhaps. But yeah, it's definitely something to try out while you're here, because you probably won't see it anywhere else. But it's
Yeah,
an experience of its own.
that's right. I've not come across this particular dish. Interesting.
And another thing is basically, I think sauerkraut is probably the best variation of that. We make it usually with cabbage or kale, and it's fermented. It's like simple kimchi.
Yep.
So those two things, but like none of these are actually ordered from like food delivery. It's like a holiday dish, and thank God we only eat it once a year.
That's funny.
I think
Yes.
that's like the Estonian. Those are the Estonian snacks mostly.
I'm still trying to figure out how the heck I'm going to subtitle that first thing you said. So, I barely caught. What was the first snack you mentioned?
Flat pudding. You mean curd
no,
snack?
before that. Yeah, what was that? Sorry.
So it's like curd snack. I think you can later Google it.
I'm going to have to. It sounds like something.
Like a Snickers bar. It's like Snickers bar, but it's made with milk and this kind of things, and it's covered in chocolate. It's actually like really good.
Yeah, no, I think I'd be okay with that one. Of all the options you listed, give me the Snickers bar. I'll be good with that one. It actually sounds, to me, I'll sound really American for a second. It sounds like a coffee table at IKEA. You should get the curd snack. It's, the product names that they have. Anyway. So speaking of what you can and can't buy through food delivery, or what you typically buy and not buy, you guys have another unique feature, which is that food court feature. So I haven't seen that before on any other delivery app, but would you kind of give us a little insight into what that is and how you guys maybe came up with that or implement it?
Mm-hmm. So it came from the food court that's like really popular in US, but we call it foodie court for obvious reasons because we can. But yeah, so let's maybe step into the food court idea first. So like food court became a huge thing in US because of the malls that were built in the outside of the city, in the suburban areas where a lot of people just came to meet and everything. So it became like a social thing to be there. But at one point they figured out that people would leave because they got hungry, and so they put food in there. And now they extended it to having like multiple food options, but you still can be with your friends at the common area where you all eat what you like. So foodie court is kind of solving the similar problem here. So it's probably best to describe it through a scenario where the football World Cup is going on right now. So let's say that I gather my friends and we're going to watch football. Then I want maybe pizza and few beers. Someone else wants a different food, but we all want to watch the game together. So instead of having to everyone order food themselves from the place they like, we made it available so that customers can use one delivery to order from multiple places. But there are few things you have to consider there, because obviously like the courier can't drive around the whole city and then just pick everything up. It will take too long, food will get cold, etc. So Fudy court is up to 3 places, and it's all of them are usually in like a close proximity of each other, maybe in one mall or like one shopping street or something like that. But all in all, it's like a predefined area which we call a Fudy court. And how it works is that as a customer, you make order through app. You choose all the foods, all the dishes you want, all the restaurants from where you want it, and the order gets to the restaurant. Restaurants actually start making it so that it would be finished at the same time. So like one restaurant that takes the longest will start earlier, the other ones start later if their food takes less time. And with that, we guarantee that when the courier gets there, he only has to pick everything up, and he doesn't have to wait. The food doesn't get cold, etc. And now, when the courier comes, obviously he has all the dishes, and you as a customer paid only for one delivery.
Nice.
So this is basically, in essence, how the Fudy court works.
So from a user perspective, it sounds like, okay, so there's an operational constraint. You bind, let's say, 3 restaurants together. You have many groupings, right? Like there'd be multiple clusters, many Fudy courts. And so how does it work from a customer's perspective? Do they like pick a first restaurant and then you expose the others that are in the same Fudy court? Or do they start by saying, I'm going to pick a Fudy court, and then it has a list of restaurants that are associated with it? How do you, how does it work from the user's perspective?
Yeah, so the user, the first thing that when he opens the app is order from multiple restaurants. That's the first thing that picks up. So in the user experience, I pick a Fudy court that's in my close proximity. I already see the delivery price of it, by the way, as well. So I know like which one is cheaper, and then I see what options are there to order from.
So you pick multiple restaurants, and then it'll just give you the list of restaurants that are associated with that cart.
Yeah, basically. So it basically opens up like these are your options to order from. If you perhaps don't have the restaurants that you like, then you can choose a different Fudy court, and like there might be more options, or might be less options, better options for you. It's all up to you, actually. There's a lot of diversity between different Fudy courts. Some of them are like really big. So the bigger malls have like really big Fudy courts, and the smaller ones have only a couple of options, perhaps.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I've been surprised that I haven't seen that feature more widely available, but I recognize that there must be some operational complexity to it, and that's probably one of the inhibitors of it. But it makes so much sense, because so often when I'm ordering, it's sort of, actually I want a dessert from a different place. Having to make an entirely new order and pay the entirely new fee, and then plus the delivery and everything else, just sort of that I skip the dessert, which is probably better for you. But it's, in any kind of family, any kind of group, you have this problem. So it seems to solve such a core problem. And food is social, right? So whether it's the World Cup or people in an office ordering lunch together, or even a family, the concept of enabling diversity and choice while still, benefiting from that small scale. It's a very cool feature, and I'm just surprised I don't see it more often.
Yeah, it definitely has some complexity to it. But I think we've kind of grown out of the initial issues that we had with it, and we're just getting better with like the operational side of it, and it's not getting used as much yet as we thought it would. Like you said, like there's a certain scenario where you see that this is the exact solution, But I think that since this is a completely new thing for the user and then don't expect it from delivery app, then we have to do a lot of educational work to our user base.
Yes.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like a business side of it, then all of it makes sense. It's obviously you make a bigger purchase that gives us the edge to pay more to the courier as well. Courier doesn't do much more work than with a single order, and then customers are more happy because they get what they want and without any compromises.
Yeah.
No, it's really smart. I've learned operationally. Oh yeah, go ahead. I was just going to make a cheesy joke, so now I feel bad. Sorry.
No, I'm not lactose intolerant. You can make cheesy jokes.
Yeah. I was going to say the way that it works in my family is my wife says, "Where do you want to eat?" because she doesn't want to pick. But then as soon as I say a place, then she's like, "No, not that." And then she'll make up her mind. So operationally, that's how our family works with making decisions for food. Is I just have to say any place and then get the no, and then she'll say where she wants to go. So I figured that out, but it's something that's learning, right? It takes years to figure that piece out.
I have a trick for that. It's great option to ask your wife, like, guess where we're eating today, then stay correct to the first option.
There you go. Oh, smart. Yeah, be like, I've already thought of it. I've already thought of everything. Where do you think we're gonna go?
Yeah, exactly. But I think great point here that perhaps there's a marketing message that we're underutilizing right now to target men who want to order what they want to order while their wife makes all the decisions usually.
Yeah, I think I have a bunch of kids. I have a pile of kids. So I think about picky eater kids. Like I have a son who won't eat chicken because he doesn't like the dark meat. Sometimes you get a vein or sometimes you get a bone or something. It's just he doesn't like that. So the bummer is there's always a sacrifice during dinner of, well, this is what we're having because we're not going to cook 4 different meals, right? So you got to deal with it. But to be able to order something and then have one person who like, this food doesn't really agree with me, like even in my family would be a nice thing. So I think it's cool, but I think you've done it intelligently in how you've grouped restaurants because we haven't talked about that before. So it makes sense for the delivery driver too. And it might make more sense. You guys are more densely packed than me. I live out in the backwoods. So it works really well for your location as well. But it's kind of a great unique feature. We can do it all on Fudy. We don't have to go to anybody else because I can order multiple, get one delivery. It all comes at the same time. So we're not like waiting for one person's food. Like it's an absolute winner of an idea. So I'm interested to see how you'll message that. Yeah,
exactly. There are like few scenarios where definitely it hits the right spot. So you mentioned like family dinner, big eaters. That's definitely one of the like scenarios where customer should think about using Fudy court. And second probably is office. So I think this was there as well. So colleagues want different things and it helps there as well. And it opens up if we look at these customer segments, then it opens up a huge list of things you can add on top of that. For example, office workers probably don't want to put it on the same bill, so they want to split it. Mm-hmm. So if we add these things, that it will automatically be splitting your part of it, or you can maybe even pay for it straight from your phone. So these kind of things opens up a huge variety of features we can add.
Yeah, think of it like.
But I think that observation that it's the observation that that the take up is not necessarily what you would expect. I think there's such a deep lesson there. I've seen over and over again with apps because while something can functionally make so much sense, if it's not aligned with what's familiar and what's just given the attention span that is so limited today, if it doesn't fall into the easy normal way you've done something, the functionality of it just doesn't actually translate. It doesn't come through. it's not able to be absorbed into the behavior. So there is a key communication layer that has to happen to expose that set of folks to that capability. And it's interesting to think about, how much of that happens within the product layout and in-app experience versus how much of it happens in prior marketing versus in messaging. It can happen in many different places, and I think it's a different in different contexts, different places, different surface areas are appropriate. But the key thing is that there is a key communication layer, and if you just unroll a feature that's a really cool capability and you don't communicate it well and you don't educate the user to that capability, I think, and every time you'll sort of see those results just not be what you expect. And then I think the sadder problem from a business perspective is then it doesn't always get sustained business support, because it's like, it just didn't get a take up, and that kind of is a sad inhibition on innovation. So really good point there, that communication is key to make the capability translate.
Yeah, definitely. It's we've seen like the darker side of it as well. So if you communicate it, but the product side doesn't, maybe the user experience or UI isn't that intuitive, you see also that people start using it wrongly or try to get the same benefit without using the feature itself. So just a random example of like customers contacting our customer support saying that why did I pay for order deliveries? I thought I could do multiple for one price.
Yes.
But yeah, definitely shows that the communication and how it's in the app, how it's communicated outside of the app, all of this matters, and it's definitely not something that we can just focus on for 1 month and then it works. We continuously have to push this one feature down the throats of our customers.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'd love to change gears a little bit. You recently joined Fudy as head of marketing growth 4 months ago, it seems, which is crazy because it means that we probably first started talking when you were there for like a month or had just started. You wrote a really, really good article on LinkedIn. I'll make sure I drop the note, and I think it got quite a good bit of attention too. And I loved it. Like, frankly, I personally loved it because you're like, okay, I'm starting from the beginning. I'm taking over. Here's everything I did. Like, step one, don't do anything right away. Stop, look at what's going on, document what's going on, like that approach. So I thought everything was really solid. I'm not surprised that did really well, because I think a lot of people have the same questions of how do I start from zero, and you did a really good job. So in it, if I could highlight one piece of it, you started mentioning about like creating documents. So documenting what needs attention, setting up spreadsheets, all that stuff. So could you tell us a little more about like your approach to documentation? So like what do you use? Any tips on structure or collaboration, strategic, tactical, just your approach to the documenting piece of what exists and how to move from there?
Yeah. Okay. I think it was 4 months ago. End of July. Maybe to start from how I got started there.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got on board, the previous head of marketing had just left like a week ago or something like that, and this already created a bit like a layer of a bit of mess. So I didn't have the one person to go to and ask like, what is this, what is that, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And since there wasn't such a good job with documenting before, then I had to take like a drastically different approach. And the main issue was that there were so few documents created in marketing that I basically didn't have anything to rely on. As far as I remember, there was like one email with list of bullet points, and the bullet points were ongoing projects with the title and virtually no details. So,
Nice.
So at first, obviously, I was like, okay, what is this? The CEO didn't know what it was, so I just had to go down the rabbit hole of finding out what is what. And basically that was my approach. So I started interviewing like the CEO, the rest, like all the heads of or leads of different departments, even our like designers, agencies that we worked with, things like that. And so then I basically painted the picture all together from the like fragments of information that I got from every one of them. And there was a lot of things missing, and I think this was the first thing that I started documenting. So what is missing, what I think that should be there, what isn't, or maybe things that I just didn't know where to find. So one of the first documents that I created was basically a list of problems that we had. And the point of it was to have a better overview, but also prioritize what I have to do now, what I can do later, what's important, what has like what kind of impact. So just creating this layer of transparency for myself. And there were things like, I don't know, website crawlability issues, or like low ad optimization score, or like meta ad tracking issues, and like things like that. And then I basically start crossing things off when I got rid of them or fixed the problem. But and maybe some basic like KPI sheets and like a new marketing budget document and things like that. But my like approach usually, if like I think this is this is not the standard situation that I was in. So I had to do things differently. If I had better transparency, I would probably still take it slow and then understand everything, and maybe not have to do that much documentation of my own right off the bat. I think my like overall approach to documentation is quite similar to. I mean, I think it's based on the companies that I worked with. Many of them are like early stage or like small teams, and in that environment, documenting as little as possible, as much as we need right now. I'm definitely not the fan of like fixing a problem right now. That's like maybe 5 years down the line, while I could be investing the time into executing something like right now. That's important right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think like it's better to for like small teams or like early stage startups, better to look like ahead, like maybe next 2 or 3 months, and focus on execution a lot more. I also think that like the transparency, the main point of documentation for me is that like the transparency it creates. So I would. I'm all for over communicating everything, so that there would be less of these like small chats about things that you could just find out with a little research on the internal documents.
Well, I was going to ask that. So, like the problem document you created, for example, where does it get stored, and is it mostly for you, or like visibility wise? So, is it just a document that lives on Google Doc that you work from, or is it something that other people are expected to see or work from, or is it just there for awareness, or how does that kind of work when you have something like that problem list?
I think it depends on the document. So, for example, like our growth and KPI documents are something that I work mostly on, and maybe I share it with the management, or maybe with my team, but basically no one else. While at the same time, there are other documents that need collaboration. And in our case, we're using like Microsoft's environment a lot. So having documents in Excel, and we also have OneCloud that's it's OneCloud that we're always using. So it creates the layer of collaboration, and it's quite easy to navigate between those. And since we're also using Teams, then I could basically just add item from one cloud, and everything works together seamlessly. So yeah, mostly collaboration documents, and there's infra for that. But again, there are a few things that are only for me.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Paul, did you have any thoughts, or you mind if I happen to one of the experiments?
Yeah, please proceed.
So in this article, I'm going to link to it because it was really good. You mentioned one of the experiments you started was focused on 18 to 23-year-olds. And I think in the article you even mentioned that was a group that hadn't really been approached or been a focus before. Can you walk us through why you picked that age demographic and a little into that experiment?
Sure. So it was okay. I think it wasn't only that I just picked that age. During the interviews, one thing that I learned was that we had Fudy had a extremely broad approach to target audiences. You know, the usual everyone eats food, so everyone's our customer type of situation. Obviously, I think we're more into marketing. We know that this doesn't fly. Not everyone can be our customers. You have to make some choices in there. So actually, my approach was to take some kind of a segment, define it as well as I can, and then focus on that. And in that context and in that campaign that we had planned, it made sense to focus on that segment. While I was pitching that we should do that, there was also some backlash about it. Things like that maybe they're too young, they don't have the money to buy, and that shouldn't be a priority audience, things like that. But I think with the campaign, we proved that this audience still buys a lot, and it's worth to focus on them as one of the niche audience that we focus on. So
how do you go from broad to narrow? So you choose this demographic that has to be the segment that happens to be first defined by age, 18 to 23-year-olds. So age is sort of like the first index of what you're looking at. And then, so what follows in terms of your marketing? Is it the language that you're using? Is it the content that you're sharing? Is it the channel itself and the surface area, that is where you expect to find that audience? What's that process of going from speak to everyone loves food, to choosing a specific slice or a specific form of identity or segment, and then targeting and focusing there? What does that look like?
Mm-hmm. I think in this case, it also depended on the idea that we had for the campaign. So it didn't work from one way to approach it is take audience, think what could be their unique selling point for them, and then focus on that and find a creative idea on top of that. So in our case, we already had idea of how to collaborate with other brands and what brands. And then I started to think who would this be for, and then mix this together. So my hypothesis was that younger audience orders more fast food. And at that point, we had a lot of that supply. We had a lot of restaurants that would be considered fast food. So it made, in that context, it made sense to focus on it. And then we added things on top of that. So it actually came from the other way around. So we had the idea, then we found who the customer segment is, and things just matched in that sense. So yeah, it was that way. And also because Gen Z makes a lot of more purchase decisions based on other influencers or what others are saying. Mm-hmm. So there was a clear take already.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You have a starting point from the perspective of the partner or brand you're working with, or some form of content, and then you're saying, all right, but let's be specific in terms of who this might be relevant to.
Yeah.
So let's look at an adjacent example of this, because you also mentioned launching in new smaller cities in the post. And so there, the starting point is, all right, we're going to go into the city. So then how do you get specific in your messaging in that instance? It's like, okay, so, I mean, you could use location specific terms or something like that, but what's the line of thought and plan that you use there? You say, we're going into the city. What is the marketing rollout plan that follows that decision?
All right. I think Estonia is it's a relatively small pond. So launching a new city, you probably, before even looking at it, know heck a lot about it. So when we're thinking about the new cities to launch in, then we probably already have some kind of data about it. We probably have some kind of insight of like how many restaurants there are, what's the issues, things like that. And when it comes to marketing, we also know like what do they care about. And our brand, like Fudy, wants to be proudly Estonian local delivery app. So we use that a lot. And now when we go outside of the bigger cities to like smaller areas, there's a lot of people that are proud to be Estonians, or like they're very right-winged in their like political views. So we use like it's easy to take our brand message and just put it in their context, and then add things on top of that they would care about. So like add a influencer that's famous in that area, or like a musician that they're proud of, or things like that. So we can be highly personal for the new city that we're launching in. But I think that's probably not the thing that everyone can copy everywhere. It's thing that you can do in a smaller country like Estonia is. But the launching part actually all starts from just when we took a broader view at this. Then it all starts from the couriers and the restaurants. So initially, basically the supply part. So if we're figuring out which city to go to, then we look at the supply thing first. So either are there potentially enough couriers to service the customers that you have? Are there enough restaurants that would benefit from having a delivery option as well? That also adds like the distance between the restaurant and residential areas. So if it's too short, then maybe it doesn't make sense to have delivery. If it's too long, again, maybe it doesn't make sense to have delivery. But it all starts from the supply part. And the good thing is that by talking to the restaurants, we also get a lot of insight about the market. So since food delivery is a highly saturated market, then there's often a competitor that they have already worked with, and they had issues. Maybe they even left the city, and now we know beforehand what the issues are, or when are they coming up, and we can tackle them head on. And then process-wise, once we figure out that there's a city that we want to expand to, then we start with the couriers and the restaurants, the supply part, maybe open it up for early users at one point when we're ready, and then launch marketing campaign on top of that when we're ready. And the scale of our marketing efforts depends on how big the city is. For example, we're actually currently just launching a new city in December, but it's a small city with 16,000 population. So really 1/6, so really small.
Yeah.
And this also means that there's small demand and also small supply, but there's also small competition. So in the end, since we have two exclusive partners that are in the city, and these two places have like very high order volume, even in a small city, then it makes sense for us to go there as well, because none of the other delivery platforms can work with them. We're the exclusive partner. So it still makes sense for us. And how we approach this is that like sales have already been working on it for a few months. They have the platform, restaurants on the platform. They know all the issues that will come up. We know what they are, and now we basically plan around it. So marketing basically steps in now, so that we'll start. Since it's a smaller city, we start with a much small scale marketing activities, mainly focus on Google and Facebook ads as a digital platform. Everyone sees it there. Then a few local influencers that they look up to, that they trust, and then a few like ad spaces. And since like the city has only one gym, then we just put our ads in the gym, and now we're targeting one niche as well, right? And usually the copy isn't like very creative as well. It's more about information than it is about being clever. So it's like Fudy's here now. I just thought that there's a nice twist to it. Like Fudy's here now. It sounds a lot like Daddy's home. I wish we would have English.
We're gonna ferment a whole new campaign here.
Oh my.
Yeah, I wish we could do like English marketing already, because like then we can use these wordplays and puns.
Yeah, I'm a fan of puns. Puns are universal. Puns transcend all languages, in my opinion. Man, there's good stuff.
But not in Estonia, the language is there's so few nuances to this than compared to like English, or maybe it's just me, maybe I just have more puns in English.
I think your Estonian is much better than mine, so I'll take your word for it. But hey, you mentioned, so just something interesting. You mentioned picking up wisdom from the actual restaurants, the food establishments. So, and I think it's brilliant too. If you're going into a new area, who better to talk to than the food establishment, because they know the area well and the clientele and all that. So let's flip this around. Usually the food establishment has like their own marketing department and stuff. How can they benefit from you? So how can you help the local restaurants basically that may not have like in-house or specialized marketing? How can you use your marketing abilities to help those restaurants?
Good point. First, I want to say that I think it's extremely necessary that the restaurant has a marketing department or marketing role of their own. We had this. We already had this experience as well. A issue where a restaurant was basically only relying on us. They did like very little marketing of their own, and all of the meetings basically ended with like, okay, bring us 30% growth by next week then. Like the wording of it as well. So we are the ones that have to bring the growth instead of they seeing this as like a partnership. So I think it's still like it's extremely important that if the restaurant has some kind of growth ambitions, they have some kind of volume already, they've made some kind of brand of themselves, then they definitely have to have a role. Yeah, but I think there's a lot that Fudy can do as well, but it depends on like how well the tandem works together, So if we take like a bird's eye view, then in essence, like Fudy is just a tool, like a platform for making the purchase or like converting the interest into a sale, and our customers are they basically just want tasty food on demand. in their bed, pajamas, without leaving their apartment or going outside. So they have the luxury of doing that, and they don't want the hassle of going out, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, Fudy doesn't make the food. Like, we don't take the responsibility for how tasty it is. We only make it easy to order and deliver it. It's our job to find a partner that has the tasty food, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Fudy's important is to be the top of the mind choice for when, like, the user becomes the customer becomes hungry, and it's restaurant job to create the brand that the customers would want or crave for even. So we have to work this in a tandem.
It's a real
they have
synergy.
To have the brand. Yeah.
It's I think what you're describing is really interesting. It's that the restaurant provides the experience that the person is looking for, but Fudy needs to be that top of mind, like the easiest way to get it. It has to be the thing that sort of makes that food possible for that person in that moment in a convenient way. And so there has to be that clear synergy where Fudy is top of mind. Because otherwise the person might just think, oh, it wasn't that delicious. Maybe next weekend I'll go get some. So Fudy has to be top of mind. But as you said, the restaurant is providing the food and the experience. And so if it's not, motivating demand and desire with its items and dishes, then the whole equation kind of falls apart.
Yes, definitely. I mean, there's a niche for like budget places as well, right? Maybe I don't, like, in the end of the month, maybe I don't want to waste. I think you're never wasting money on food. You're always getting in an experience.
Yes.
So but I wanted to say that there are definitely like smaller places that have like cheaper prices, and they also have a customer base that actually like want that now. Maybe different reasons, probably. Maybe don't know how to cook themselves. Maybe fast-paced life. Different reasons, right? But the best synergy works when restaurant works on their brand. Maybe they're the best sushi place. Maybe they have like a really high quality food. Maybe they have like only local goods. Something like that. So they have to have some kind of brand that the customer desires for, right? And at the same time, Fudy can help that brand get to the customer at the right time. And I think in that formula, our job and our best place is basically to be on top of mind at the right time with the right message, with the right incentive, and this is probably the bare bone of what we're doing and what we should be focusing on. Obviously we do have. You asked like how can we help the restaurants? So we can assist them on like how to create that brand image. We can perhaps even like take it as a pilot project and help them create that brand image with them. But it's not a scalable operation, right? It has to be like a pet project of your own. We can't make a brand from scratch. We can only work with the brand that they have, and definitely to help, like to drive the sale. There are obviously some reasons, and I think we're all falling from them all the time. So promotions, discounts, free delivery, whole menu discounts, these kind of things. Maybe even like category campaigns. Like we had November was a vegan month, so we had discounts on all the vegan foods as well, right? So
no blood pudding.
No blood pudding for the vegans. Yeah.
Only pudding.
Yeah. Again, you guys are abusing the term pudding and making it do things that it should never do.
Definitely.
Well, I was going to ask too, and maybe it's too logistical, but I love the brand Fudy's created. because just, the bright background, and it really sticks out, your courier bags and all that stuff, and the fun writing and all that stuff. You have in your article, you've talked about like some co-branded marketing, but do you have you opened it up like a marketplace where like restaurants can purchase a certain amount of ads or push notifications or something from you, and then it's like co-brand, like that kind of thing? Is that how you're helping them market since you're closer to the customer?
I don't know where you got that information, but you're in the right track. It's probably not a publicly known domain. but yeah,
we're just avid industry followers. So let's just say we just got
something
our
we've
fingers
seen
in the air. We're just nothing about Fudy. We're just see where the winds are blowing.
All right, but yeah, definitely there are. I think it's up to the platform to decide how they approach this, right? So we all have very similar tools to use. So like free delivery, for example, everyone knows that it has an impact on sale, and no one's going to like figure out a different way to do that, or like this is one thing that we know that works, right? So, but it's up to the platform to define how they make it as an option for the restaurant. So I've heard multiple ways of doing that. One is that they add on like extra commission during the period to the restaurant and charge basically the balance from the restaurant. Some of them with a really big pockets do it from their own cost, because in their KPIs they have to drive sales, right? So they don't put the pressure on the restaurant to either accept it or not. And some even calculate it into the commission fee by themselves. So maybe you pay like a higher commission to the platform, but part of it is like a marketing fee, or like a marketing access to marketing tools and things like that. So it's really up to the platform. And in Estonia as well, there are multiple different ways that platforms do it. But I think there's probably definitely a market where restaurants that maybe don't have that strong brand image could benefit from having a constant image on inside the app and being like constantly on the discount carousels or things like that. And there's probably a market for it. Yeah,
it's hard to, and it's a balance. It's always a balance, because you don't want your brand to be locked to a specific restaurant for too much, where people don't, lose your breadth, right? And how much you offer. So it's a delicate balance with kind of everything. It's just interesting to see how different people approach kind of the same problem. To your point, costs don't go away. By offering something for free, there's still a cost. So where does the cost go, right? So
this is basically it. But I think there's you mentioned like how Fudy can help restaurants, and I think there's another layer to it that's on top of the like just driving the sales, right? I think there's a business intelligence layer on top of that, which is hugely undervalued. So if we again take like a bird's eye view at this, then Fudy stores a lot of information about users' behavior on the app. So what kind of foods do they order? What kind of when do they order? Is it weekend? Is it weekdays? Is it only into the office? Maybe also dinner to the home? How often? Things like that. Where they are located as well. So we store all that intelligence. And I actually, I was really surprised when I joined Fudy that platforms don't give that to the restaurants. That's thankfully, like in Fudy's case, we have the opposite approach. We want to give all of that to the restaurants. And like, I think there's like a huge growth opportunity for restaurants that work with Fudy, because they get to see like who their customer really is, maybe use that information to target better using the ads, target other influencers that this customer segment relates to. Also, where their customers are located. Maybe we should open another venue that's closer to them, and that will drive up our sales. All these kind of things, all this kind of intelligence that we have at our fingertips, that we can provide to the restaurants and help them expand as well. So I think that's like a huge upside to the restaurants. We also have this in plan, like how we're going to help like our partners with the intelligence that we have.
Mm-hmm. I think it's very synergistic, to use Paul's word, though. Because, I mean, if they're buying from you and you're giving the information to the restaurant advertises better, yeah, sometimes they may go to the restaurant and not order through Fudy, but probably a lot of the time they still will, because you're that added convenience layer. So it all, to your point, I like it. You're sharing that data because there isn't any value to keeping it to yourself. You want the restaurant to thrive as well because you need them to. So I like that approach.
Yeah, especially like in this formula where we clearly state that it takes two to make this thing grow and go bigger, and restaurant has to do their part, and we can do a lot to help them do their part better. So it, like, in this sense, it makes a whole lot of sense to give that, and maybe even educate them, like how to look at this data, or what kind of insights did we get from this. And maybe even give tips like maybe you should expand to this area or this country or things like that.
Absolutely. All right, if we're cool, I'm going to wrap it up. I have one question that I really like to ask. So you have an interesting background, having, you did the agency, you went to Upsteam, you were doing car washes, making car washes sexy again, to quote you. And then over at Fudy. So kind of, it's an open question, but you can focus it on Fudy, or you can focus it kind of on your journey. But throughout this whole process, what has been like the most interesting thing that you've learned or come across, or an interesting lesson or a tidbit or something like that? I love putting you on the spot like that.
Okay. I think this is like a controversial one.
All right.
But important. I think marketing and sales functions are like two of the functions that you have to be very good at presenting yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think it's like a key thing. And it's either like in sales, obviously you're presenting to the customer, makes a lot of sense. But in marketing, you might have to present your ideas, but you also might have to present yourself while applying for another job, because marketing function, same as sales function, gets a lot of blame if the results aren't there, even if it's not the issue, right? Maybe the product is shit, or like there's focusing on like being really good product, but there's no traction, right? Mm-hmm. So marketing functions get disposed a lot, and now you have to do interview again to another place. So one tip is that if you're working in marketing, then it's probably very good if you know how to present yourself and your experience and things that you can do for the company. Because in like, I don't know, a few years, you might need it.
But they say, isn't it average tenure for a CMO is like 18 months or something like that? Because they're just like the easy, like, we're not doing it fast enough, fire the CMO.
Yeah, definitely. That's the go-to.
So your tip is keep your resume up to date. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say keep a resume up to date, but maybe just document your successes and then be good at presenting yourself.
I like it. That's a much friendlier way to put it. No, I agree though. It's a lot about numbers, because it can switch to perception really fast. So having numbers and a story is always a good thing. And to your point, we should do that as marketers. We should be able to have a story. That's supposedly what we do, right? So
definitely.
Well, awesome. That's a wrap. So thanks so much for tuning in to the podcast, everybody. We hope we learned something that will help and inspire your work. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like and share. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And that's all for this week. So thanks again, Siim, and we'll catch you next week.